everyone. Today we're going to start a new chapter book series called The Stories That Julian Tells. These stories focus on a boy named Julian, his brother Huey, and all the mischief that they get up to. This is another episodic chapter book like Frog and Toad, where each chapter is its own story with its own beginning, middle, and end, or problem that's being solved. But the characters are consistent throughout the story. So we'll gather information and then use what we learn about the characters in one chapter to help us predict how they'll act in the next chapter. When I'm looking at this book, I'm going to give it a sneak peek because it's a new book to me. I'm seeing there's a boy on the cover. He looks like he's probably about your age. And there's some cats all around him. He's holding a hose that's squirting water, and the moon looks like it has a cat's face. On the back of the book, there's a blurb. Let's read what that says. Julian is a quick fibber. Oh, that's another word for somebody who tells lies. And a wishful thinker. And he's great at telling stories. He can make people, especially his younger brother Huey, believe just about anything. Like the story about the cats that come in the mail, or the fig leaves that make you grow tall if you eat them off the tree. But some stories can lead to a heap of trouble, and that's exactly where Julian and Huey end up. Ooh, I'm wondering what they do to get in such big trouble. As we read today, you can use this page out of your learning packet to help us collect information. We're going to focus on three characters, Julian, Huey, and their father. The Pudding Like a Night on the Sea. That's an interesting title for a chapter. Remember that when we see the word like, that means that two things are being compared. So the pudding is like a night on the sea. How would a smooth, soft, creamy pudding be kind of like riding in a boat out at night on the water? That's an interesting thing to think about. We'll have to explore that a little bit as we read the chapter. I think this author's using a lot of that fancy figurative language we've talked about before in class. Ready? Let's see if we can gather some information about our characters, Father, Julian, and Huey. I'm going to make something special for your mother, my father said. Ooh, that shows that he's kind of thoughtful, doesn't it? He's thinking about doing something special for the mom. My mother was out shopping. My father was in the kitchen looking at the pots and pans and the jars of this and that. What are you going to make? I said. A pudding, he said. My father's a big man with wild black hair. Ooh, that gives me a picture of what he looks like in my head. When he laughs, the sun laughs in the window panes. Again, there's some of that fancy language that makes me think, oh, he must have a really big laugh. It's almost like sun shining through the window. When he thinks, you can almost see his thoughts sitting on all the tables and chairs. I think that author's trying to say he has really big ideas. They almost fill up the space. And when he's angry, me and my little brother Huey shiver to the bottom of our shoes. Ooh, he must get kind of angry sometimes, enough that it scares Huey and Julian. What kind of pudding will you make? Huey said. A wonderful pudding, my father said. It will taste like a whole raft of lemons. It will taste like a night on the sea. Oh, there's those words from the title. A raft of lemons. A raft is like a flat boat you might make out of sticks. And if it's made a raft of lemons, I wonder if he's going to make lemon-flavored pudding. Let's go ahead and stop here and think about what we already know about Father. So when we think about Father, we can write some things down. We know that he gets scary when he's angry. We know that he can be kind and thoughtful, like when he's making the pudding for the mom. We know that he's big and that he has wild black hair. That's how they describe the way he looks. So let's go ahead and keep thinking as we go. What do we know about our characters? Then he took out a knife and sliced 5 lemons in half. He squeezed the first one. Juice squirted in my eye. Stand back, he said, and squeezed again. The seeds flew out on the floor. Pick up those seeds, Huey, he said. Huey took the broom and swept them up. My father cracked some eggs and put the yolks in a pan and the whites in a bowl. That's when you separate the egg into 2 different parts. He rolled up his sleeves and pushed back his hair and beat up the yolks. So he's beating them like this, stirring them. Sugar, Julian, he said, and I poured in the sugar. He went on beating. Then he put in lemon juice and cream and set the pan on the stove. The pudding bubbled and he stirred it fast. Cream splashed on the stove. "Wipe that up, Huey," he said, and Huey did. It was hot by the stove. My father loosened his collar and pushed at his sleeves. The stuff in the pan was getting thicker and thicker. He held the beater up high in the air. "Just right," he said, and sniffed in the smell of the pudding. He whipped the egg whites and mixed them into the pudding. The pudding looked softer and lighter than air. "Done," he said. So let's stop and think. Let's keep track of everyone and everything that we've read so far. We want to make sure that we're keeping the characters all straight. So we have Father. We've learned that he can be scary, but he's also kind and thoughtful. He looks big and has wild black hair. We learn that Julian and Huey can both be helpful. They're helping their father make the pudding. They're also obeying their dad when he tells them to pick up the seeds or to pour in the sugar. Let's see what else we can learn about them as we go. I need to go back. "Done," he said. He washed all the pots, splashing water on the floor, and he wiped the counter so fast his hair made circles around his head. "Perfect," he said. "Now I'm going to take a nap. If something important happens, bother me. If nothing important happens, don't bother me. And the pudding is for your mother. Leave the pudding alone." Oh boy. He's going to go take a nap, and he's leaving those boys with that delicious smelling pudding. And his last words were, "Leave the pudding alone." I'm going to stop here. Predict what you think will happen when he leaves Julian and Huey alone with the delicious smelling pudding. I think they're going to try to take a taste. I know it'd be hard for me to not sample that pudding I just helped make. He went into the living room and was asleep in a minute, sitting straight up in his chair. Huey and I guarded the pudding. "Oh, it's a wonderful pudding," Huey said, "with waves on the top like the ocean." "Oh, that sounds like waves, or a pudding like a night on the sea, the waves on the top like an ocean." "I wonder how it tastes," Huey said. "Leave the pudding alone," I said. "If I just put my finger in here, I'll know how it tastes," Huey said. And he did it. "You did it," I said. "How does it taste?" "It tastes like a whole raft of lemons," he said. "It tastes like a night on the sea." "You've made a hole in the pudding," I said. "But since you did it, I'll have a taste." And it tasted like a whole night of lemons. It tasted like floating at sea. "It's such a big pudding," Huey said. "It can't hurt to have a little more." "Since you took more, I'll have more," I said. "That was a bigger lick than I took," Huey said. "I'm going to have more again." I can just see this happening. Can you see it? One boy takes a little taste, and then the other one's like, "You got more than me," and takes another. And pretty soon, the pudding is almost gone. "Whoops," I said. "You put in your whole hand," Huey said. "Look at the pudding. You spilled on the floor." "I am going to clean it up," I said, and I took the rag from the sink. "That's not really clean," Huey said. "It's the best I can do," I said. "Look at the pudding," Huey said. "It looks like craters on the moon." So there's another example of what it looked like. Craters on the moon are those big dips that you can see on the surface of the moon with the shadows. The pudding that used to be smooth like a night on the sea now has big dips out of it. "We have to smooth this over," I said, "so it looks the way it did before. Let's get spoons." And we evened the top of the pudding with spoons. And while we evened it, we ate some more. "There isn't much left," I said. Ooh, let's check in on our predictions. Were we right? Did we think that when Dad left Huey and Julian alone with that delicious looking pudding that they would taste some? I did. What I didn't think would happen is that they would eat so much of it that there would hardly be any left. What do you think is going to happen in the rest of the chapter? We're going to stop here for today and make a prediction. What do you think will happen when Dad wakes up and sees there's hardly any pudding left? Let's go ahead and add a few more things to our list for our characters. Another thing I'm adding is even though they obeyed Dad when he was asking them to help make the pudding, they also disobeyed Dad when he told them not to touch the pudding. And I also put down troublemaker. They were encouraging each other to do something they knew was wrong. That was also kind of sneaky of them. So this is what I have about our characters so far. You can add some more information to your character chart as well. And then in our next video, we'll finish the chapter and we'll answer some questions about what happened in the Pudding Like a Night on the Sea.